Ifeoma didn't blink. She couldn't speak. She just sat there letting Kimberly's words hang in the air like smoke. That was when the weight of it hit her. She was pretending to be Amanze's sister, but she wasn't the only one. That night, after Kimberly spoke, Ifeoma couldn't sleep. The room was dark, but her mind was wide awake, replaying every word like a broken radio. She was too intimate. She didn't act like a sister. Her 3-year-old daughter called him daddy. She lay on her side, staring at the ceiling fan that refused to rotate. The silence in the room felt louder than thunder. She thought about that phone call again. The one where Amanze begged her to pretend. Just act like my sister Ify, just for a little while. And now, here she was, pretending, choking, drowning quietly in her own house. The morning came slowly. Ifeoma stood in the kitchen preparing breakfast for the kids, but her mind was spinning. The night before had peeled something open in her. Not just betrayal, but the realization that Amanze wasn't just a liar. He was an architect of deceit. He had designed a life where every woman wore a mask. He told Ifeoma to pretend, told Kimberly to believe, told another woman in Lagos to wait. But this time, the women were done playing roles. After breakfast, while the children were outside with Kimberly showing them how to play hopscotch, the American way, Ifeoma called her into the room. She closed the door. Kimberly could already tell. "There's more, isn't there?" she asked. Ifeoma nodded. Then she told her everything from the beginning. The land they sold, the lonely nights, the voice notes, the lies. The way he came back after 2 years, showering her with gifts but never staying home. How he told her over the phone to pretend to be his sister when Kimberly comes. And the Lagos woman with the child? Not even the first side story. Kimberly sat on the bed with her hands folded in her lap. Her face was still, but her eyes were burning. "So you're saying he was married to you?" "Yes," Ifeoma nodded. "And he said, I'm just his investment and not a wife?" "He used us all like ladders," Ifeoma replied. "But we can burn the ladder." They both sat in silence for a while. Then Kimberly stood up and said calmly, "Let's not tell him anything yet. Not yet." Ifeoma looked at her. "Since he wants us to pretend, let's keep up with the acting. We act like nothing is wrong." "Why?" Ifeoma asked, confused. Kimberly smiled, but it wasn't a sweet smile. It was a kind of smile that meant a storm was gathering behind her eyes. "Because we need time to plan, and men like Amaz, they only notice fear. If we give him silence, he wouldn't know we're setting the table." For the rest of the week, they played their parts. Kimberly laughed at his dry jokes. Ifeoma smiled when he entered the room. The kids called him uncle like they had been taught. Amanze strutted around like a man in control of his empire. He had no idea the walls were shifting behind him. No idea that the two women who once fought silently for his affection were now exchanging knowing glances across the dinner table. 3 days later, Amanze returned to the US with Kimberly. He hugged the kids, told them to be good for Auntie Ify. He kissed Kimberly and promised to make it up to her. She smiled, told him, "Of course you will." He didn't notice the way she was already pulling her hands back into her own pockets. The morning after Amanze flew out, Ifeoma got to work. She called the agent who handled the new apartment's paperwork. She found the lawyer who processed the car's registration. She checked all the documents, and just as she suspected, Amanze had registered most things in his name. He immediately started plans to transfer the documents in her son's name. She smiled softly. "You trusted me to lie for you. Now, trust me to take what's mine." By the end of the week, Ifeoma had sold the cars, transferred the apartment to her name, cleared the account balance Amanze had given her to keep for savings. It had been a week since Kimberly returned to the US. She and Ifeoma were still in touch, quietly sharing updates through WhatsApp, encrypted emails and brief voice notes. Kimberly was gathering her legal documents. Ifeoma was finalizing the property transfers. But one thread was still dangling. Adora, the woman in Lagos, the one whose child had called Amanze daddy. The one he insisted was just a younger sister. But sisters don't breastfeed a man's child. And a 3-year-old doesn't mistakenly say daddy thrice. Ifeoma had questions and now she wanted answers. She traveled to Lagos quietly. No one knew, not even her neighbor in Enugu, except her close friend Adanna, whom she had left the boys in her care. She took just a single overnight bag and the envelope that had started it all. With Kimberly's help, she had found Adora's full name and address. She arrived in Surulere by mid-morning. The compound was quiet. The sun was out, but her chest felt cold. She stood at the gate, knocked once. The woman who opened the door looked surprised and suspicious. She was tall, dark-skinned, with tired eyes and a worn wrapper tied loosely around her waist. Her daughter peeked from behind the curtain. Ifeoma smiled gently. "Good afternoon, are you Adora?" The woman nodded slowly. "Yes, please, who are you?" Ifeoma took a deep breath. "I'm someone you may or may not like to meet, but I think we have a lot in common." Inside, the room was small but neat. The scent of egusi hung in the air. They sat. The child, Ngozi, played on the floor, humming softly to herself. Adora watched Ifeoma closely. "I know this is strange, but I came here to tell you my truth and to ask for yours." She placed a brown envelope on the table, a picture of their small wedding in Enugu. "I don't know if you know this man, Amanze. I was married to Amanze for real, like legally, emotionally, entirely, until he told me to pretend to be his sister for another woman." Adora's face changed. "Sister? You too?" Adora walked into her room and opened a small drawer and pulled out her own envelope, photos of Amanze at her baby's dedication. She played his voice notes from her phone and even showed him the transfer he did for her sometime. Adora looked up, her voice trembling. "He told me about you once. He said you are his cousin, his only relative that is alive, and that he helps you because you were struggling and that your husband is late." Ifeoma looked at her, shock in her eyes. "I can't imagine he lied to you like this. I never knew about you, about all of this. It was only Kimberly he told me he married for papers. It was Kimberly that even told me about you." "Wait! Kimberly, the white woman?" "Yes," Ifeoma answered. "Amanze told me that that white woman was his business partner." "What? And he told her you were his younger sister?" "No way!" Adora screamed. "Amanze have always had his way with words, but this? He lied to all of us." Ifeoma nodded, the quiet ache in her chest finally confirming what her spirit already knew. "We were all sisters in his script. None of us knew the full story until now." They sat in silence for a moment. Two women, two lives, same betrayal. Adora's eyes filled. "You know the worst part? I raised this girl alone, never asked him for anything, just thought maybe he was building something for us." Ifeoma looked at the child. She just looked like Amanze. "He used our loyalty as currency," Ifeoma said softly. "And now the bill is due." Adora handed Ifeoma a file. Inside it were copies of the child's birth certificate, photos from the child naming ceremony, a copy of the marriage introduction letter, and chats where Amanze called her my wife repeatedly. "Take it," Adora said. "If you and that woman in America are still fighting this battle, use whatever you need." Before she left, Ifeoma placed a hand on Adora's shoulder. "You are not alone and you are not foolish. You were just honest with the wrong man." Adora nodded. "What are you going to do now?" Ifeoma stood adjusting her bag. What I should have done long time ago. Walk away with everything that still belongs to me. The sun was hotter now outside, but Ifeoma didn't feel the heat. She felt something else, not peace, no, not yet, but clarity. And sometimes that's enough to begin again. That night she returned to Enugu, packed everything. Every single thing Amaze had bought, every gift, every reminder, she sold all of it. Silently, she concluded the transfers, some to her name and some to their son's name. Then she left Enugu for good. No forwarding address. Not even neighbors saw her go because this time Ifeoma wasn't just leaving a place, she was living the lie. Meanwhile, in America, Kimberly was already 2 steps ahead. She had spoken to her lawyer, filed for divorce, froze their shared account, and most importantly, reported Amaze for immigration fraud. It didn't take long. Emails were traced, photos surfaced, testimonies were gathered, all from women who once called him my man. 6 weeks later, Amaze received a letter, then a knock at the door, then a deportation notice. He was sent back to Nigeria with nothing but the hand luggage he came with. No reputation, no future. Back in Nigeria, he went to Adora's house in Lagos first, but as he approached the familiar gate, something felt off. The clothes on the line were different. No more baby socks, no wrapper flapping lazily in the sub. Instead, a pair of jeans and a Manchester United jersey hung beside an unfamiliar red bra. He knocked, but there was no answer. He knocked again. A teenage boy appeared at the window, his eyes suspicious. "Who are you looking for?" he asked. "Adora. She lives here." The boy squinted, then chuckled. "No, the woman don't pack out though. She doesn't live here again." Amaze's heart skipped. "She moved? That's what I just said now, Oga." And with that, the boy just disappeared before Amaze could say another word. Amaze stood there for a while, quiet. Then he tried to call her. The number was switched off. He tried again, still nothing. He muttered something under his breath, rubbed his neck and walked back to the roadside. It was too late to go anywhere else, and he didn't have enough funds to make too many moves. And so he found a motel near Ojueleba and checked into room 104. The ceiling fan creaked. The bed smelled like camphor and bleach. He stared at the cracked ceiling all night, replaying everything. That morning, Kimberly had walked into their shared apartment in Atlanta, looking like a woman possessed. No greeting, no kiss. She slammed the Malina envelope on the table. "You know I'm not stupid, right?" Amaze blinked, confused. "Kim, what? Shut up, Amaze. I know everything. Your lies about Adora, about Ifeoma, about your kids. I paid attention when I came to Nigeria." Her voice cracked. Her hands shook. "I was there living with you, while 2 other women were breathing through the same lies." Amaze stuttered. "Wait, Kim, how do you know about Adora?" "I spoke to Ifeoma." "You did what?" "Yes, I did. And she was enraged. She told me everything. How you begged her to lie for you. You built a house of lies, Amaze, and all the rooms are now on fire." That night, Kimberly didn't sleep in the apartment. 2 days later, federal officers showed up. He thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. He was charged with immigration fraud, bigamy, falsified relationship documents. They didn't even let him grab his things. No bank withdrawals, no phone backup, not even the red hoodie he liked to wear on travel days. He left the US with one carry-on bag, a dead iPhone, and a belt that didn't fit anymore. "How did I put myself in this mess?" he muttered. He slept in a small motel that night. The next day, he traveled to Enugu. He didn't call ahead. In his mind, Ifeoma would never leave. She wasn't that kind of woman. She might shout, cry, but he believed that she would always forgive, and because she had his 2 sons, she was going to stay. But he got shocked when he arrived their gate in Enugu that day. It was around 4:10 p.m. when he arrived. The streets looked the same, but something in the air had shifted, or maybe it was just him. When the keke dropped him in front of the house, he blinked. Twice. He was sure he was at the right place, but something didn't sit well. The front door had been painted a new color. The curtains were different. He walked into the gate and knocked, but there was no response. He peered inside. There were slippers at the doorstep, two small children pairs, and man's leather sandals. Then he saw her, not Ifoma, but a woman in her mid-30s, humming as she watered a potted flower. She looked up and frowned. Yes? Sorry, please. Does Ifoma still live here? Ifoma. She turned to call someone inside. A man stepped out, tall, dark, bowed. Who are you looking for? He asked. I'm looking for my wife, Ifoma. This is our home, or used to be, he muttered. The man folded his arms. Oga, we just moved in last week. We bought this house through an estate agency. I do not know any Ifoma, he said, looking at Amanze. Amanze's hand fell to his side. She didn't leave a number or a forwarding address. The man chuckled. I just told you I didn't meet anybody. They both looked at him and went back inside. The gate shut with a hollow metal sound. Amanze just stood there. He sat on the pavement outside, sweating. How could Ifoma leave? With all the investments? He stared at the gate like it might change his mind, like maybe Ifoma would suddenly walk out, a towel on her shoulder, and that smile, the smile she used to smile when she didn't know any better. But the gate said nothing, only cars passing by. Amanze sat there confused, betrayed by his own confidence, because for the first time in years, the hunter had lost all track of his prey. He picked up his phone again. That would be the 100th time he would try her number since his trip that day. He pressed dial and put the phone to his ear. The line rang once, twice. Then, the number you're trying to call is currently switched off. Please try again later. Amanze dropped the phone, sat still. He had no family, no home, and no money. Where do I start from? He muttered as a single tear slid down his face, cutting through the dust on his cheek. He looked at the gate again, still creaking, dry, motionless, just like his life. The end. My story lovers. Amanze thought he was playing chess, but forgot that the queens can move too. He told one woman to act like his sister and called another one his business partner. Now, wow. Imagine he built an empire on lies and lost it all to the truth. The same women he thought he was deceiving, they left him quietly, powerfully with dignity. And you see Kama, it doesn't rush, but when it lands, it balances really well. No need for shouting. The silence was loud enough. Well, the moral of this story is that sometimes the people you think can't survive without you are just giving you time to disgrace yourself. Don't build love on lies, because when the truth finally knocks, even your shadow will disappear. My story lovers, I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. If you were Ifoma, would you have exposed him from day one, or done exactly what she did? And Kimberly that reported him for immigration fraud, do you think she was just being too extreme, or what she did was just right? What do you think about men that like to juggle women without consequences? About Adora, should she have left Amanze to be part of his daughter's life? And finally, is it possible to forgive a betrayal like this? Please share your thoughts in the comment section. And if this story touched you or shook you or reminded you of somebody, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more real life gist and powerful storytelling. And don't forget to share this video with your group chats. Let them come and argue in the comment section. Till next time, keep your heart safe, your eyes open. And remember, some sisters are not what they seem. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.